Hello everyone, and welcome to another video of our Alumni Talks. Today I'm interviewing Mr. Nikola. He is currently a PhD student at Cornell University in the field of genetics, genomics, and development, with a Bachelor of Arts degree in biology from Columbia. And more interestingly, he was the Director and Chief of Operations of Columbia University's ambulance for 2 years. And as such, he was in charge of the emergency medical responses around Columbia and the general Harlem area. Mr. Nikola, it is a pleasure meeting you and an honor to interview you, because myself as a junior right now, I am very eager to hear your responses about the questions I'm about to ask you.
Thank you so much for the wonderful introduction, Sara. It's also a pleasure to meet you, and I'm so happy to be back and to be able to do this interview. So thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. With the first question, how would you describe the biology program, and how would you encourage people to study this?
So biology, to me, is kind of like a puzzle. The way I view it is, it has all of these different pieces that we put together to get a better picture of the world around us and everything that's around us. Because really, when you think about it, everything kind of boils down to biology. And that just might be my bias because I'm studying biology. But the thing about biology that really drew me to it is genetics. Because, as I said, I kind of view biology as a puzzle. Genetics is the instructions manual to putting that puzzle together. So if you can understand what's going on the most basic level, on the level of, the instructions that each and every cell has, then you can understand how to put everything together and make one whole unit out of it. So really, I'm someone that likes to approach problems that we don't necessarily have any current solutions to. So I found biology to be the perfect place for me to pursue that, just because there is so much to be explored.
Glad to hear that. Also, what influenced your decision to study biology the most?
So I came in as a pre-med student at Columbia. So I was set on going to medical school, which is why I also was involved in the ambulance. Part of the requirements for the pre-medical program are taking a lot of classes in biology and chemistry, and also working in a biology lab. And it was really this experience that made me understand that I'm not necessarily interested in medicine per se, but actually the underlying research that goes into medicine. So I was working at a genetics lab in my first year at Columbia, where I was researching the formation of amyloids, which are these proteins that cause Alzheimer's disease. And what I found was that I was much more interested in doing this research and understanding how the disease works than I was in necessarily, being on the front line as a care provider. So I was much more interested in kind of understanding how this can be done better. And that's kind of when I realized that perhaps my interests don't lie necessarily in medicine, but in biology. So I think it was really that firsthand experience of being in a lab and actually doing research that made me understand that genetics is something that I want to pursue.
On to the second question. How did NOVA help you with your education and career? Did your high school experience make work in an international environment better and easier?
I could say that NOVA definitely was a great primer for what is to follow. So spending my most of my middle school and my high school in an international environment like NOVA definitely exposed me to the educational systems that sometimes may differ from ours, but also to a lot of different people from different backgrounds, different cultures, different beliefs. And I think that really put me in a growth mindset. And I know this is probably something that's been talked about at NOVA as well. But really having, I don't think necessarily that the I mean, obviously the educational aspect in the classical setting, in a classroom setting, is very important. But what I think is even more valuable is that experience of being in this international community, the ability to kind of understand what it's going to be like when you go to an international university, to a large university where your paths are going to cross with so many different people. I think the most important thing that Nova gave me is a growth mindset and a beginner's mind. And the beginner's mind is actually something that Columbia's Dean Valentini, talks about a lot, but I know Mr. Novakovsky talks about a lot as well. Really, I found that it's very important to realize that no matter how much you think you know about something, you should always approach it with a beginner's mind. You should always be ready to grow and learn more from others around you. And I think that is what Nova gave me. That is what Columbia gave me. And that is what made me interested and curious in pursuing, a doctoral program in biology.
What a beautiful experience. Describe your typical day as the director and chief of operations at Columbia University's ambulance. I am very curious to know about this.
Right. So as an emergency medical technician, it was very, very different from working as an administrator in the ambulance as well. I was both at the same time. So as director, it was mostly paperwork, lots and lots of paperwork, and lots of administrative meetings. But, occasionally the ambulance would break down, and someone would have to go over and figure out what's wrong and fix it. Or, sometimes we would have someone call out of a shift last minute, and because it's an ambulance, it has to stay in service 24/7. So it would be my job to find a replacement or to take the shift for myself and, cover for them. But also at the same time, I also worked as a emergency medical technician on the ambulance. So what that would mean is that whenever we would get calls for patients in the area, I would drive the ambulance over to the patient with lights and sirens, which is an incredible experience in Manhattan. And then once we would get there, actually provide emergency medical treatment to the patient, whether it's something as simple as taking their vital signs and transporting them to the hospital because of abdominal pain, to something much more complex like providing life-saving CPR on a patient in cardiac arrest. So it would really vary, and every day was a different experience, because what you learn is that you don't treat the dispatch. So you don't go in thinking like, okay, I was dispatched to this is what I'm supposed to do. But what you learn is that you have to treat the patient, and you show up and you might realize that you had a wrong dispatch, or you might realize that the patient called in for one thing, but something else has happened since. So and it ties back to the beginner's mind thing, where you're like, I might have this dispatch, but I'm going to show up and try to learn everything I can from the patient, because at the end of the day, that's kind of the goal of being a good healthcare provider, is not just treating the symptoms, not just treating the disease, but also treating the patient and kind of being there for them. And I think the experience of being EMT really exposed me to a lot of different people. I realized that I wasn't necessarily right about my perception of medicine, because I thought that all of the legwork is done by biologists and then doctors just implement it. I realized that that's not true. I realized that there is a lot more that goes into medicine, and it's a very interesting field, and very very noble, in the sense that you know that you're there to help someone else, and you're sacrificing your safety, sometimes your time, to help others, especially during a pandemic like this, when I was still in New York City responding to some calls during the beginnings of COVID, and that was a whole different experience, where you kind of show up on scene and you realize, I don't have to be here. In fact, I would much rather be home safe from this virus that no one knows about. But at the same time, I want to help these people, and I don't want my community waiting 50 minutes for an ambulance. So that's why I'm going to work, and I'm going to encourage all of my friends and all the other EMTs that I know to work as well, so that we can be more efficient and treat the people that need our help. So it really makes you feel like you're doing something much bigger than yourself.
Such a noble work. I am honestly impressed with all that stress and all that. I imagine medical work to be very stressful and sometimes traumatizing. And I personally think that I'm not capable to, work well under such pressure. But I honestly admire medical workers, and what you just said is impressive.
I mean, I would say if you're interested in that kind of work, you should definitely give it a try. There's a lot of opportunities for people to do that. Even in Macedonia, you can, volunteer with the Red Cross, or you could also shadow a doctor at a hospital and just kind of get a sense of what they're doing. But I thought that it wasn't the work that I was interested in until I tried it, and then I realized that it's something that is stronger than you. It's just, you really want to be there for these people. You really want to help them, and it ties back to giving back to your community. Like, the community where I was at Columbia had given me so much that I felt that I had to give something back somehow, and this was probably the best way that I could do it, by working on an ambulance.
Yes, I get. I think that most young people should just step out of their comfort zone and think about activities they have not tried yet, but they really might be good at. So also, my mom says this thing that I love medicine, but I love the theory and I don't like the actual healthcare work. But I guess she never gave it a try. And just now, I am also interested in biology, and I will think about stepping out of my comfort zone, really. Thank you. I might just get involved with the Red Cross and
I would definitely encourage you to do it. And at the end of the day, even if it's not for medical stuff, just being able to give back to your community is rewarding in and of itself.
Okay, thank you.